over securitization of the electoral process. I think that there is a tendency that is reflected in the question that all we need to do is just change the laws. But you can't be changing the laws to face every situation that you cannot apprehend before time. And some people believe that our electoral process is being over-legislated. And that what we need to go to do now is to go beyond legislation. And that is why the point made by Jibo becomes important. To organize citizens to rise and protect their mandate. It's been done in isolated cases. Ondo, in 79, I think. 1983, Night Ondo. It was done in Kano. It was done in Bauchi and a few other places. So I think what we need to do is, if we can, and this is where the press can come in, can serve a useful point. Our narrative tends to be always on what the politicians are doing, what they are not doing, but what can we do as citizens to protect our mandate? And I think we need to now find a way of engineering some kind of a people's-driven attempt to go beyond the politicians, because they will not change. It's not in their interest to change. And there's some kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy that we've all fallen victim to. And there's nothing that can be done. Elections will be rigged. This will be done. Without trying to say, but what can we do about it? We must change our mindset to believe that we as the people, we can do something about this. It's been done elsewhere. It's been done within this country. I think that it is important to do that. And one way I like to illustrate this is that all over the country, you have vigilante groups who feel that you have communities establishing vigilante groups who believe that the state has failed them to provide security. And they themselves have not organized themselves to confront robbers, to confront those who would like to make life uncomfortable for them. Nothing can be more important than the votes. If we can organize to protect our community from people coming to steal our property at night, then can't we now do this in terms of, as a nationwide movement, to organize citizens, not just before election, but as on a continuous basis, to organize citizens to take their citizenship right seriously and be prepared to defend it. And that is the, I think the CDD is trying to do something like looking beyond citizen, expanding the meaning of citizen mandate to making citizens themselves take responsibility and take that initiative away from the hands of the politicians.
And we are working with the cable and other media houses to also gather information so they are deploying your colleagues across the local governments to enrich the quality of data that we will be having. While some of our colleagues are in Edo, our briefings will be here in the Hilton, and we have decided to do this based on two issues. One is the coronavirus pandemic itself, and of course the second is the issue of the insecurity that is pervading the election. So this dual threat has made us to stay in Abuja while following up with our colleagues on the ground. And it's also important to note that we have 18 civil society partners in the local governments, across the 18 local governments, to enrich it and make it to be locally owned so they can also use the data set. On the issue of security, I think our own worries, one, is that the numbers that are being touted, will it reflect the reality on ground? Are we really going to have those 31,000 people, policemen on ground, 1,500 FRSC, 35 cars? Because in previous elections, the numbers, the reality does not match. Secondly, for us is the fact that there should be no intimidation, which we have tried. The whole of yesterday till this morning, we were talking to our observers. We got news of deployment on ground in several of the local governments, some of the police or military. They've arrived since Monday. Helicopters are going around, but nobody is reported that they are being intimidated as at the time of preparing this report. But again, if you read our report, we are very explicit that they must not toe the partisan line, because that we have seen in previous elections. So you see Professor Jibrin made mention of a deterioration in previous elections, not just 2019, but Kogi, Bayelsa, and the Kano supplementary elections. So these are very important parts, really, for us. I'll be allowing my senior colleagues to actually speak to some of these issues that really borders on the integrity of the process. And I think that why we can continue to talk about this feedback. The Nasarawa constituency elections is too small a unit to pilot something that should be used in such a big and contentious elections like the one we are going into on Saturday.
Yes, I think this point Hidayat made is very important. You cannot be in a critical election because there are issues of belief in the electoral system that may be at stake. The risk is that if it fails in an important and critical election, people will start believing conspiracy theories that it was designed to scuttle it. So in such cases where you are not absolutely sure of your technology, the best thing is don't even try it. The first question was about fault lines have not changed. The practice of our politicians in the use of thuggery, violence has persisted, and the attitudes of do or die by political parties continues. And the question was therefore, why do we expect this election to be better? I think the reason why we expect this election to be better is that, for one, citizens of this country are becoming extremely concerned and bitter at elections without credibility. And it is important that we as a country save this belief in the system by Nigerians. And the only way in which you can save it is by improving the quality and integrity of the elections themselves. We are very aware about the do or die attitude of some of the political parties, but we are also very aware there is a new consciousness within the citizenship. And in Edo State in particular, a lot of the conversation today is that people are saying they will not allow politicians to scuttle the rights of citizens to elect the person they want. This is what gives us confidence in Edo, that the citizens are on the watch out, that they are determined to ensure that their votes count. Because of this determination of citizens, but also the assurances by INEC and other stakeholders, we do believe that this election will be a credible one. Thank you. Okay. I was expressing our concern about a series of anti-democratic trends that have been observed in the last elections in Bayelsa, in Kogi, in Kano, characterized by, on the one hand, the deliberate use of thugs and violence to change electoral outcomes, but also the use of security agencies in manners that are not non-partisan, and therefore showing a relationship between those who have power and the conduct of the elections. And in a sense, this election in Edo and the forthcoming election in Ondo would be key determinants in terms of defining the direction of our future elections. Getting Edo right is therefore fundamental to returning our electoral process to credibility and to integrity. We talk in our statement about vote trading, and I want to emphasize that vote trading is maybe a misnomer in terms of how we are using the concept, because trading is a legal activity, but buying and selling of votes is a crime, and therefore cannot be taken as ordinary trading. The key concerns we have in terms of how the elections pans out has to do with what would be the attitude of voters. Are voters willing to sell their votes? Are voters ready to turn out, given concerns that have been expressed about the high possibility of violence? We were pleased to see the signing of the peace accord between the candidates, but our greater concern is whether this peace accord will be implemented in practice. We've seen in the past, peace accords are signed, but when the day comes, they are not followed in practice. The terrible insinuations, labeling, insults, and threats circulating in the social media in Edo State have created a climate in which many people are afraid to come out and vote. There's a risk that the trend of reduced turnout, which we have already observed previously, may be even worse this time, as people decide to stay indoors rather than take the risk of coming out to vote at the cost of their lives, at the cost of their well-being, at the cost of their personal security. All this suggests the work for INEC is even higher than in previous elections. The logistics for the elections must be conducted in a very proper manner. Given the social distancing rules they have enunciated, the time for the elections may not be sufficient and may have to be extended. I think the other important thing for INEC, as we've been emphasizing, is quick responses to issues and challenges that emerge. Finally, I want to emphasize the importance of security agencies being neutral the importance of security agencies being neutral, being non-partisan, and above all, acting in a constitutional and lawful manner. The turnout for these elections would be extremely important. I think the challenge for voters and citizens is that they must not be intimidated by what has been circulating, especially in the social media and in conversations around that if they succumb to all these insinuations and stories, then they are creating conditions where their vote may not count. And for us, what is really important is that in the great need we all have of improving the quality and integrity of our elections, they all turn out, they all exercise their mandate in a peaceful and orderly fashion, and that in the process of counting and collating the votes, truth and accuracy prevail so that confidence in our electoral process is created, as well as building the legitimacy of our democracy. Thank you. I'm not sure we introduced ourselves in the beginning. The chair of our Electoral Analysis Center is Professor Adele Jinadu, who made the opening remarks. Although she's disguised, Idayat Hassan is the director of CDD, and you can see who I am because I'm not disguised. My name is Professor Jibrin Ibrahim, Senior Fellow of the Center for Democracy and Development. I didn't see him. At the far end is Dr. Kole Shetima, the chairman of the Center for Democracy and Development.
Thank you for that presentation, sir. I think